Have you ever wondered how to get maximum return on investment for your newly purchased solar and battery storage system? Well, today I'm going to be giving you the right advice so you know how to search the market and find the best solar and battery storage system tariff for you. I'm also going to be educating you on smart export guarantee, tariffs for EV car chargers when they work alongside solar and battery storage, and if you've got a heat pump, how to get those bills right to the ground. Let's go. So the most traditional method of gaining revenue from your excess solar is by exporting it out to the national grid. So this is where you've got a very sunny day, we've taken care of all of our home loads, our batteries filled up full to the brim, and we want to get an extra payment for the excess generated solar. Well, first of all, there was a traditional method, and this is causing a bit of confusion in the industry, called feed-in tariff. Now, depending on when people got involved in the feed-in tariff, their payments would vary. Anything from 20 pence all the way up to I've seen customers earning 75 pence per kilowatt. Now, unfortunately for you, this is no longer available. This scheme shut down a few years ago, but you may well have a feed-in tariff system and be installing battery storage, so you'll still want to listen on. The next type of payment is the one that you can access today with your solar and battery storage system, and this is a tariff system called Smart Export Guarantee, and you'll see this abbreviated into the word SEG. This is where you can get paid extra money for any excess solar that's been generated by your system. And it's really important that you get onto the right tariff. Now, this is a universal video, so this is designed for all different tariff providers, so it's really important that you shop the market. I'm not going to be recommending a specific tariff. Instead, I'm going to be educating you on how to choose the right tariff and, roughly speaking, what you should be getting for your smart export guarantee. Now, later on in this video, I'm going to be giving you another tip in addition to that to boost your savings even further in the winter via a scheme called the DFS, not to be confused with the sofa. Listen on. Now, importing energy, in my opinion, sits into three different camps. Now, you have to excuse me in advance. I'm an electrician and a solar PV engineer and not an English teacher, so my handwriting isn't the neatest, but please follow along. Anyway, so the first camp we can sit in is going to be solar and battery. The second camp we would sit in is where this interlinks with EV car charging. And the third camp that we're going to sit in is where we've got a heat pump. Now, this could be a combination of either solar and battery, solar and EV, or solar, EV and heat pump, or just solar and battery and a heat pump. And I'm going to try and cap these off in the best way I know how, so you can make sure you're buying the right energy from the right place at the right price and maximizing your return on investment. So tariff traditionally works a little bit like a flat line. You would pay a fixed price every day. Now, I know energy prices will vary from point to point, but we're just going to use 30 pence as our example. I know prices on the grid right now as I speak are about 27-28 pence on a fixed tariff rate, depending on which one you're buying. But let's call it 30 pence for easy maths. So regardless of when you buy your energy into the battery, it would always be fixed in price. Now, this is where solar and battery storage tariffs now really shop the market for these, but effectively what you have with a solar and battery storage tariff is you get a dropping point. Now, these typically speaking are typically in between midnight and 5 AM. Some tariffs give you 3 hours, some tariffs give you 4 hours, some tariffs give you 5 hours. Now, the length of time the tariff happens is really important for your battery, because if you've got a 10 kilowatt battery and your battery storage is only capable of, say, charging up at 3 kilowatts, it's really important that you get the right amount of time so that your battery has long enough in order to be able to charge. More on that in a sec. So this cheap tariff started at 12 till 5, and typically speaking, this will drop to about 10p. The rest of the day, you might incur a slightly increased rate of, say, 32 or 33p, so it goes up slightly, and also be cautious of your daily standing charge. So your standing charge might be 40p on this, but could increase to 60p. Get a spreadsheet out would always be my advice. But let's just deal with it in really simple terms. What you then do with this battery storage is charge here. So you set your charging settings, and then what happens is your battery then starts meeting the demand here. So effectively, if your battery's big enough, and as long as you set this up right, you will not end up using this energy price at all. And your effective rate of your electricity drops to 10 pence. Now that's good in the winter, but you might want to run a little hybrid of this in the summer. So let's just go through a second scenario that we've got here. So that is, we've now got this drop price that we've decided is in between 12 and 5. Excuse me for my squiggly graph. But what we might find is, if we have a smaller piece of battery storage, that we can effectively charge it in the middle of the day using our solar spike as well. This might enable you to reduce the size of your battery. So effectively, we can charge here at 10p in the summer. We cook our breakfast first thing in the morning, put our kettle on, solar then tops our battery up for a second time, and then this depletes out to cook for our tea that's here. So effectively we can run double cycles on the piece of battery storage. This is the most common breakdown of solar and battery storage. Now another thing that happens alongside these solar and battery storage tariffs is an increased export rate. So what we know on our import, we also have the same in reverse for export, which I referred to earlier. So this is where this price actually, you don't get as much for it. So the amount that you have decreases. So if we use this as a decrease on payments, this is a decrease in terms of cost, but this is now our export. So when it decreases in your price to import energy, you'll also get a decrease in price to export, but you're not going to be exporting it between 12 and 5 anyway, so don't worry about it. This then goes across, you will then get an increase here in the amount that you're getting paid for the energy. So here we have a drop in price, but when we export, we then get an increase in the amount. So what you can then do is, this here can be say 40 pence or anything up to about 40p, depends on your postcode, region, a few other factors that go alongside this as well. So what you can effectively do in the summer, if you're a bit clever, is, and it's very simple to do by the way, you can set your inverter to charge between 12 and 5. What then happens is sunshine then comes out, tops your battery up again, and then what happens is we say, well, we don't need, we've got a 10 kilowatt battery, we don't need 10 kilowatts. We're going to need 3 or 4 kilowatts, statistically speaking, to be able to send this out the grid. So I'll tell you what, we're going to sell out 50% of our battery storage out to the grid and get our premium rate, collect some money for pass and go, and then we go back up again to our evening rate, and this then comes back round again. And what that basically means is you get the benefit of cheap nighttime charging here. If we have any excess to export, this might be at 15p here, but we're also skimming off a little bit on top of the battery and getting an increase in terms of our export as well. It's a win-win for people that have solar and battery storage. So the next type of tariff I want to go through with you is where you've got an EV night rate currently, and you've now decided to adopt solar and battery storage, or maybe you're doing the reverse. So you've effectively got an electric car and you've got solar and battery storage on your house at the same time. Many people do not realise that when your EV is charging, you can also charge your solar and battery storage. So allow me to run through this. Typically speaking, with an EV night rate, we get a cheap night rate, and in my household, that is from 11:30 to 5:30 in the morning. And for me personally, that's 7p, much cheaper. So at the same time your electric vehicle is on charge, you can program your solar and battery storage system to charge at this cheap window. You can also, typically speaking, and this is my system that I've got, you can also get a flat rate of 15 pence to export. Now, you can actually get ones that are slightly cheaper and slightly higher as well, but it depends on your postcode region. But for me personally, this is my tariff. So effectively, 11:30 comes, car goes on charge, battery goes on charge, battery's now full of 7 pence electric. This can now meet the demand of your home and offset against the slightly higher, normally, electricity price at say 32 pence, 31 pence, something along those lines. So effectively, my whole house then runs at about 7p. I've worked this out over the last 3 months, and my weighted average energy bill per unit was 9 pence, because I did use a tiny bit of the 32 pence when my battery ran out on some of the recent days we've had with snow on my panels. But actually your effective unit rate in my household had gone down by 2/3. But here's the trick. Because you can link these 7 pence tariffs with 15 pence, in the summer, If you effectively, or this is what I do, charge my battery up at 7 pence every night, including in the summer, my battery is then waking up with the day nice and full of energy. Now what I'll often do is put a washing load, I'll put a dryer, I've got 2 girls, so we use a lot of washing in my house, and this depletes the battery downwards. But what that also means is, effectively, I'm leaving space for my solar energy to top into my battery. That happens in the middle of the day. There's a worst case scenario. If I generate too much solar energy, I get paid a flat rate of 15p for it, effectively doubling the price. Now, something I just want to add in a disclaimer here is, if you've got a limit on your battery cycles, you just want to be a little bit cautious around this, because running extra cycles can put wear and tear on batteries. But typically speaking, getting paid 15 pence for it and buying it in at 7p will far outweigh the losses you're going to make running cycles on from what you'll actually get paid in your energy. Now, what this basically means is, if you export your energy for 15p, you could buy 2 equivalent units back in at night again, thus running your car at 7p and running your house roughly near 7p as well. Now, I hope you're sticking with me. Fast forward into the future a little bit, or maybe you might be in this situation now and you're thinking, how's this going to work alongside a heat pump? So I've got a heat pump and solar and battery as well. And I'll do heat pump, solar, battery and EV in just a second for those people who've got the treble, as we want to call it. So standard unit price, if you're running your heat pump now at 30 pence, most heat pumps can convert electricity to heat in a ratio of around 3 to 1. And what that basically means is, again, using 30p for simple maths, for every 30 pence of energy, I get 1 unit of heat out. So my effective rate of heat is about 10p, which if you compare that to gas is about twice as expensive. So if traditionally you heat your house with, say, £200 worth of gas in the winter, which is quite a lot, you could expect doubling in your bill. And if you're sat here going, I really need to choose the right tariff because my energy bill is doubled, listen on. This is the scenario you faced in. We've now added solar and battery. The downside to a heat pump is when you're generating energy, so it will be in the summer. So you may only spend 20 or 30 pounds in the summer heating your hot water. So we have an abundance of energy in the summer when we don't need it. And then we're lacking energy in the winter when we really do need it, when you're maybe running 40, 50 kilowatts a day worth of energy via your heat pump. And something I'm going to come on to a little bit later is for those people that just have solar and battery EV is an additional rate of saving called the demand flexibility service, but more on that in a second. If you're enjoying the video so far as well, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. So let's carry on with this. Heat pump, solar, battery, 3 to 1, and we're now paying an increased vast amount. So this is where solar and battery comes in. One thing I do just want to stick another disclaimer in here is you must check your charging settings on your inverter. Some inverters do not have the internal memory capability to fit more than 1 or 2 charging slots, so it will depend manufacturer to manufacturer. But we assume on this basis that I put this forward that your inverter is capable of 3 or more charging slots. So at this point in time, what we have on the grid is a treble rate drop. And this will vary from supplier to supplier. And what this basically does is, with a heat pump tariff, typically the rates are around 12p. And then it goes up again, slightly higher than your base average cost, to about 32p. Again, varies postcode to postcode. So what this basically means is we can set up multiple charging windows within our home battery storage system. So we can tell our battery, during this period in the night, we want you to charge. Then during the expensive period, we want you to meet the demand of the heat pump and the rest of the loads in the house to offset this 32 pence charge. Thus, during this window, we're now running our house as a total of 12p. Then what happens is that cycle then continues, battery then charges back up again in the middle of the day. So this is the night. We've got the middle of the day, and then we've normally got slightly after tea time is how they tend to work. I'm not going to give you specific hours because it will vary depending upon the tariff provider. What then happens is battery then starts to charge up again, heat pump then runs during this time, and any loads then run at 12p as well. This load then looks to meet the demand of the house during that expensive period. Battery then charges again, rinse and repeat throughout the course of the winter. Now, if you're careful with your tariff provider, you might be able to flip onto one of the other type of rates where you get a cheaper nighttime rate in the summer and benefit from higher export rates as well. I know a lot of people that do tariff flipping, but this is specifically for the winter when you're perhaps not generating as much solar. Now, if you do happen to have a day that you're generating a little bit extra solar energy, well, that's just going to top the battery up and cause a demand for less charging on these periods here. So it's only going to complement your system. For those people that don't have the benefit of being able to install solar panels, you can just get a battery to do this and essentially reduce the price. Well, what that now means is instead of paying 10 pence for a unit of heat, we're now effectively managing to lower our weighted average to around the 12 pence mark. With our 3-to-1 conversion cycle, what that basically means is a unit of heat is now about 4p, which means it's cheaper than a gas boiler to run a heat pump. Few things you need to be aware of if you've not selected your battery storage and inverter so far for your solar system. What's important is, if for example, you know you're going to be using 50 kilowatts of heat throughout the day, 40 kilowatts worth of heat a day, we have to blend that down into the individual cycles. Now, often these windows can only be about 2 hours long. What that basically means is we've got to be able to charge our battery up fast enough within that 2-hour period. It matters less with the other tariff, but really important for this, and then be able to have an inverter big enough to be able to meet these demands here. This often means a standard hybrid inverter that can charge at say 3 kilowatts isn't fast enough and can't meet the demand quick enough. So you need to look at much bigger styles of inverters and battery storage that can meet these demands. You'll hit the treble at this point in time and you want to be sustainable and you want to reduce your bills as low as they'll possibly go, but you're going, I can't quite go on a heat pump tariff and I can't quite go on an EV tariff. What do I do? Because these heat pump tariffs only charge for 2 hours, it's not long enough to be able to charge my electric car. Well, there are new tariffs on the market, and these tariffs enable for a triple rate drop with an increased evening charge rate. So what that basically means is we'll have a really big drop at night. They normally do limit these charging cycles to about 5 hours in the evening, but that's normally enough to give enough charge to your EV. And these nights rates will be about 7p. Now this is where you want the hybrid tariff. So this is where it drops slightly less and slightly less again. So this is the afternoon. Told you I wasn't particularly good at English. And this here is just after tea time. So what we have here is, this will typically be about 12p, this will be about 12p as well. So EV goes on charge here, heat pumps running, batteries charging at 7p. Now if you've got a mild day, you can probably lower your weighted average just by trying to charge heavily on that cycle. But where we've got a very, very cold day, our EV's now full, our battery is now full, and what we want to try and do is get another couple of charges. So the average energy prices again is certain up to 32p, and we want to avoid those at all costs. So what we do, we set our battery storage to charge another couple of times. So what then happens is your weighted average drop even further. Now, in order to be able to get this, there's normally a bit of criteria. You normally need an intelligent EV car charger. So these can be limited by way of access, and it's really important you check the terms and conditions of each individual energy supplier. Earlier on, I dropped a little nugget about something called DFS. Please don't confuse this with buying your new sofa. Instead, this is a thing called the Demand Flexibility Service. A lot of people really don't realise that you can support the national grid and get paid a couple of coins for doing so as well. This gave me about another £100 to £120 on my own system in terms of return on investment last year. Now again, another disclaimer, it's not available to all inverters and all battery storage. You must check with your individual manufacturer because it needs to be an intelligent inverter. But you can effectively, at peak times, export your energy onto the grid. Most people don't realise that energy prices are not set as a standard price. on the grid, your energy supplier is buying your energy in half-an-hour increments. So what effectively happens is, when tea time hits, typically speaking, between about 4 and 7 PM, the price skyrockets because we're buying loads of energy. And this is particularly prevalent from October through to about February. Now, when the price increases beyond a certain point, typically speaking about 50p, you can cash in on it. You can set your inverter using this API automatically to start charging earlier on. So what happens is, this is now your standard flat 30p night rate. We may well have a drop earlier on, but the energy price on the grid is going up. Your price is fixed. So you can charge your battery here at 30p. You might be thinking, why would I want to do that? Well, charge it at 30p and your supplier will pay you, typically speaking, between 70p and £2.10 per kilowatt. Bear in mind, they're probably paying 3 or 4 quid for it at this point in time. So what they then do is, you charge your energy and you say, I've got energy spare. It uses a virtual network to group your inverters together so they charge and then discharge out to the grid forcibly between this 4 and 7 nighttime period. You then get paid between 70p and £2.10 a kilowatt. So effectively, you sign yourself and subscribe yourself up to the service, you click a few buttons, and then this will automatically buy the energy in here, and then effectively what it will do is force this energy out to the grid and you will get paid for it. Now, there are other services as well that you can opt yourself into, like rapid frequency response, where your inverter, in the event the frequency on the grid drops, you can be there to support it as well. And you can opt in and opt out of these schedules depending upon which supplier that you are with. This is a really good way of getting a few extra coins out of your system. The next thing I want to go through is a thing called an API. Now, this sounds really complicated, but actually it enables you to be really hands-off when it comes to controlling your solar and battery storage system. Some inverters and batteries that are a little bit more premium come with this as standard, but some of the mid-range are now doing it where you can basically get a third-party application to control your inverter. And what this means is, when you've set it up once, you can leave it alone and it's just going to make you dosh in the background. So how does this all work? We can get apps. So for Tesla, there's Net Zero. For Give Energy and some of the other manufacturers, there's a software called the My Energy Optimizer or WonderWatt. And what these basically do is take your energy buying to a whole new level. So now at this point in time, you've selected your tariff that you want. And there are certain tariff providers that will just do a direct connection and miss out the application altogether. But with this control, what you can effectively do is, in addition to your demand flexibility service and all of the other good things I've mentioned previously, is control things like your weather forecast. So what this software can do is say to your inverter, it's sunny tomorrow, we don't need to buy as much. Or, it's sunny tomorrow, we need more because you're going to do a roast dinner on a Sunday. How does it know this? It learns how much energy you use and when you use it. So effectively, if you consistently cook a roast dinner every Sunday, the algorithms pick this up, and using artificial intelligence, they learn how much energy you're going to use, when in the week you're going to use it as well, and when it's going to be cheapest to buy it. So it then runs the algorithm in the background. So nice sunny day, we don't need to buy as much in the battery, saving you cost and increasing your return on investment and saving minimum touch points for you as well. Looks at cheap spots, looks at when it can send it out to the grid, looks at your usage and make sure you buy the right amount at the right time and save you having any alterations on your inverter at all. Now, as time's going on, software manufacturers and battery storage manufacturers are building more and more of this tech in their actual applications on their mobile phone. So some of the brands and manufacturers, you don't even need an API, but it's something really good to have a look at, because if you're a busy household like I am, you just want to program it and you want it to make the most in returns and leave it to it, rather than having to constantly change your app. Now, this is often optional. You don't always need this, depends on your actual manufacturer themselves, but it's something that's really good to know about to be able to reduce those bills all the way to the bottom. So I would be really interested in hearing what tariff you've chosen for your solar and battery, so that anybody watching this video can educate themselves on the best possible tariff. If you could click that in the comments below, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.